Hello?
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 If you can hear this, it's not too late. I return to warn you. This is Time Pop, a podcast that discusses time travel and pop culture. There are spoilers. I've seen the future, and nothing is sacred to these folks. Your past, present, and future are sure to be ruined. Even if you could go back in time, as I have, you will never forget what you are about to hear. You've been warned. This is Time Pop.
Welcome, Chrononauts, as we guide you through the experience of time travel using pop culture as our Nicolas Cage as Superman. We will be your constants. I am Dez.
I'm Ari.
And I'm Scott.
And this is
Time
Pop.
Time Pop.
Guys, this is a special one for me, guys.
Oh,
This is a big deal.
Scott.
This has been for me like 47 years in the making.
This has been,
This is a big deal.
was it, so it sounds like you're pleased. Sounds like it was almost worth the wait.
No, I'm just saying I'm a big Flash head, and there's not, Flash was an underground superhero, obviously. Was also a Batman head, so whatever. But like, everyone for the Superman and the Batman and the Wolverine, not a lot of Flash, and he's getting some press.
He is.
I have a tattoo of his stuff on my arm. I'm a big deal.
That's right. That's right.
this is the second Flash movie.
No, it's the first Flash movie ever.
This is the first Flash movie ever. Oh.
Yeah, this is a big deal. Let's respect. He's had 2 TV shows,
He was just in all the other
Justice League things. Yeah.
Justice League movies. Okay, but this is his own movie.
What I feel about the film or not is irrelevant. I'm just saying my guy got his due. I'm a big Flash enthusiast, so it's exciting. I just want to celebrate the moment. If anyone else out there is also a Flash enthusiast, it's our day to celebrate in the sun.
So it's been a while since we've had something this hot off the presses. So we must remind you, we are going to spoil this. We're going to go, we'll talk about the movie a little bit, but we're going to do a super deep dive into all the time travel that happens in this movie, which is the movie. So there you go. You've been warned.
You've been warned.
Enjoy this chat. Scott, as the resident Flash head, give us a little bit of, how did we get here? How did the Flash get here? Tell us about Barry Allen.
Oh, wait. How does Flash make it to the screen? What is his origin story? What's the history of the Flash? What are you asking?
You have the mic, Scott. You've been waiting for a while for this.
Okay.
Well, if you've seen the movie, which we're assuming all of our listeners have, this movie does a good job of kind of explaining his origin story, right? The fact that his father was accused of killing his mother and sent to prison, right? That's his big superhero, backstory moment. And then he became a superhero because lightning struck some chemicals and then struck him. Is that?
Yeah, he's a forensic scientist. Well, so full history. The original Flash was in like the 40s. He looked a little bit different. He's got like a big silver helmet and like a weird suit. They showed it at the end of the film. That's the original Flash. Then like all DC, they re-upped it in like the 60s or so. And then we got the modern day Flash. Later on, Kid Flash took over. We won't get into that. Barry Allen. Then he died, saving the universe and a big multiverse thing. And then Wally West took over. But yes, originally he was a forensic scientist, right? His parents were killed his mom was killed when he was young. Dad in jail. He became a forensic scientist. One day he's at the science lab and lightning hits a bunch of chemicals that falls on him and gives him his powers. Things get a little more complicated in the comics from there, but I'm going to leave it at that basic explanation.
That's what the movie says.
There's stuff that goes on later in the comics that goes into some weird time speed lord things. I won't get into it.
So could they make as many Flash as they want?
With lightning and chemicals?
Based on this movie, it seems like they have the the technology.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited there's a Flash film, but this film has some flaws. It's not the best thing ever. And,
so does Barry Allen already have something inside him that allows it to come out? Or could Bruce Wayne make infinite Flash?
It should be a very chance encounter of exactly what happened in that day.
Yes.
Later on, you find out he was kind of chosen by like time gods and speed gods and from the Speed Force. So we won't get, that's not in the film, so whatever.
Right.
But like, it's not just like, oh, I know what chemicals are in the office and I just know exactly what quantity. And if lightning plus that if I ever get struck by those chemicals, I'll always get these powers. That's a bit of that's a stretch.
But that's exactly what they did in the movie. He recreated his accident perfectly and got his powers back. So
Yeah, it was. There's some flaws.
Let's make some Flash. Let's make some Flash.
It's easy to make Flash. Here, all you need is a little hydrochloride, a little lysergic acid, and
a kite.
you could start a business.
back in the day, a lot of comic books, a lot of heroes were caused by like accidents, right? Which is why when I was a kid, I would try to like touch a light bulb because I thought I could get powers. But I just burned my hand.
Well, it's such a formula, right? It's something tragic happens in your life, and then there's some kind of accident, right? Spider-Man, Flash.
Chemicals, gamma ray accident for the Hulk.
Yeah.
What should kill you just gives you powers.
You got to have dead parents.
Yeah, something tragic.
and a nuclear.
Or be incredibly wealthy.
Yeah, that's true. You could just train.
Or very smart. Very smart.
Or very smart. Or both.
I'm smart enough to be a superhero.
Man, if you have all of these, you're good to go.
So this movie starts off. We see the Flash just flashing it up so we can get introduced to him.
Flashing it up.
And then how does he end up? So I watched. Ari, when did you see this?
Today.
Oh, you saw it again?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize you were part of the kid. Well, fart then. So yeah, I saw it a couple days ago, and I'm like, it's slowly draining from my body.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to see it again, because there's a lot there. There's a lot to talk about.
I like how they treated him at the beginning. I always thought that also, like, someone who could see time that fast and that slow would be so impatient with like everyday life because he sees things at that speed. And so like to show the coffee scene is really great. His metabolism is pretty nuts, and so he's got to eat constantly.
That's his one weakness, right? Is that he has to constantly be eating.
He's also mortal. Like a bullet will kill him. A sword will kill him. He's,
But if he's hungry, his powers are at a less. They show us. So Ari's kind of right. Like if you did starve him, you could slow him down. I love that he's like burning rocket fuel at a record pace, but a single slice of pizza will recharge him. It should take like 4 pies to recharge that guy.
So yeah, it starts off with a little scene in the coffee house. He's impatient. His food is running low. He's got to go save the day. And the guy's just way too slow and he's very impatient. And then he has to run off. Although he does get a snack from like the bystanders, right? Oh no, he didn't.
No, he ate food from the vending machine.
Yeah, but that's later. But so he runs off to Gotham, which is pretty cool. I mean, I always like to see how they handle the powers and stuff. But yeah, he's in Gotham. Batman's handling the bad guys, but they want him to handle like the building, the hospital.
The aftermath of the explosion that the bad guys made to escape. That was a fun scene.
It's a wacky scene. It's you just see all the babies flying out the window. They're just tons of babies. And like one baby's got knives going toward it. One's got fire. One's got like alcohol. It's just the worst scenario you can imagine.
It was so funny. They vacillated between like looking like real babies and looking like the dancing baby in that Ally McBeal show. Like it was so fun.
Yeah.
The CGI is questionable on this. I read an article that like they spent $200 million, they had to fix it, and they just didn't have the budget to like up the CGI, and they're just like, fuck it, we can't spend more on this. The CGI was like video game. I don't know. Like the babies didn't look real.
It took you out of it on a few occasions, and you kind of just had to accept it and just look past it.
DC always like they're super people, so I usually give them like I don't know how physics would work on a superhuman, but the physics in DC movies are always a little weird. Like the way they move and like in their fights, they seem to like a video game almost. Like sometimes they slide into place or something.
Yeah, it looks animated.
Yeah, it looks very animated. Speaking of which, I'm just going to jump way forward since we're talking about the animation. Why the fuck wouldn't you just get Nicolas Cage for that 4-second scene? Like, why did...
Budget?
Why... He would have... I find it hard to believe that Nicolas Cage wouldn't have done that for free.
He probably doesn't look like that anymore.
Who cares?
Have you seen Nicolas Cage recently?
It's still like... It was a child's rendering of what Nicolas Cage looked like 20 years ago. Like, I don't know.
They reshot this and stuff. Who knows what point that came in and what their budget was.
Because they had to have paid him a lot just to...
His likeness. Yeah.
Yeah, just to have his pixels in the movie. Yeah, I don't know. That was really weird. So we meet up with, so we do have one scene with, or not one scene, but...
Where he's rescuing the babies?
Well, no, after that, after he rescues the babies.
But I think it's worth examining also that the Flash in his powers alone is already kind of time travel, right? His sense of time is different. The fact that babies are falling out, and for him, it's, like the bullet coming, you have enough time to take the bullet and move it. His sense of time, he's already a time traveler in that sense.
Well, he can essentially stop time or slow it down tremendously because
he can't. That's just his perspective that they're...
No, I know, I understand, but there were a couple of scenes where he slowed down time, and it was like they were barely moving along, like in the grocery store when he's saying goodbye to his mom and he's taking out the can of tomatoes from the shopping cart, and she's like got her hand on his face, and he froze time essentially, or slowed it down so much so he could take it out. So yeah, he kind of already can time travel.
Yeah, his sense of time is different than ours. He can live a lot in a second. He experiences time differently. So that's worth noting, right? Yeah, he saves the babies. He can run so fast that he can hop on like water or on bricks to because he won't fall because he's moving on. Anyway, he gets the bar himself first because it's like on the airplane, you got to give yourself the oxygen mask before you help others. So he gets his snacks first, then he gets the babies in order. He's got good vision, saves the babies, saves the dog.
Yeah, it was a fun scene.
Goes back, right, gets his sandwich. And then I'm trying to remember, where's that go? Is he off to court from there?
Well, do we want to recap the whole movie? Because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. No, I don't know if we need to recap the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to jump forward to superhero shit. Like I said, we meet Batman and Wonder Woman, and wasn't there someone else on the bridge when they kind of have a post-mortem after everything happens?
Well, he gets frustrated in that moment when he thinks back in time with his dad not getting out of court, and he just runs really fast, and that's when he realizes he can time travel. He breaks the speed of light and time travels.
Well, that's after he goes to his house, right? How does he end up at his house? That's what
I don't know if he's actually, I guess he's going there, but he's also going down memory lane because he's talking to his dad about the court case and not being able to help him.
Yeah. And then, out of frustration, he just fucking takes off.
Yeah.
And then that's when he ends up, for all intents and purposes, in the Chrono Bowl.
So we could talk about that. In the movie, they don't explain it too much. They said he broke the speed of light and then was able to go beyond space and time. In the comics, he had a device called the Cosmic Treadmill, and he had to use that treadmill to go within time. For some reason, he had to use the device with his speed. Somewhere suggested moving at different vibrations could help you do it. But in this one...
So it looks like sometimes it looks like he's running forward, and sometimes it looks like he's running backwards. So does he have to run?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Because it would make sense if he had to run backwards to go back in time, but...
So what they're saying is he was able to run faster than the speed of light, and when you do that, you enter this fourth dimension.
Right.
Right? That's what they're saying. And in this fourth dimension, he's in this sphere inside his timeline, the bigger sphere, right? And when you're in that sphere, if you're running forward, I guess theoretically you could go forward in time depending on what their, laws are, but you would see him, running backwards like in the sand. They made it like hourglass sand, which I thought was kind of cool. And he could like rewind. It was like a movie reel, he could rewind it and see where he was and then go through the sphere.
And he could see what's going on. He could see moments in time.
Yeah, or go there.
And fast forward and rewind to where he wanted to go.
Yeah, so the laws of this is if you travel faster than the speed of light, you enter the fourth dimension, and that is time, right? And you can manipulate time within your time sphere.
So then does he do anything on that first trip?
He just peeked in. He looked through and he saw the whole incident that happened with the babies.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. And then he went back to Batman and talked about that. And Batman's kind of like, he's like, dude, I can fix things. I can fix my family. I could save your parents. And Batman's smart enough to be like, you could destroy everything.
As we've learned And as we learned in Meet Cute, your pain is what makes you who you are.
Your trauma.
Your trauma is who you are. And Batman knows that. There is no
You
Batman.
can use that
without
one,
his trauma.
therapist. You can use that. That's a freebie.
Kaylee Cuoco just handed you that one on a platter. So, of course, Barry's like, fuck all that. I'm going to go save my mom.
Well, he tries to think of a way to very subtly, indirectly change the timeline. I mean, who wouldn't do that? If you were given this opportunity and you had a tragedy like that, like who wouldn't do that? Would you guys do that? Save someone you love because you can?
I mean, not to destroy the universe.
But you don't know what's going to happen. It's never been done before.
Well, Batman warned him. Batman knows things.
Yeah, but this is,
I know he had a technicality. He's like, well, I'm not going to interact with anyone. I'm not going to do anything directly. If I just remove a can, that's a small thing, or add a can.
Now, if I'm in a universe where all of these movies don't exist, I definitely do it. But I have learned way too much at this point in my life to think I can go back and do anything.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't do that, Desmond? You wouldn't try it just to save the person you love the most?
No.
It's saying the three of us, if we got offered a time travel device, I would imagine the three of us would be more skeptical than any other human on the planet because we analyze this every week. And
it's not.
We know the damages. At least we wouldn't do it without being very smart, without considering a lot of things.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely like start by going to yesterday and just like removing the macaroni and cheese from your cupboard and seeing, because like it's just, I definitely like the butterfly effect is real.
Yeah.
And I believe that. And I think you don't see how far out those dominoes go. And you save the one person you love, but now that person is at work instead of the person who eventually got their job. And now that person's.
So, Scott, you wouldn't do it even with how you believe time.
We're saying with what the three of us know in this reality of us as like time travel experts, I think we all know the consequences of all these things. It would just be, it depends on the method.
Yeah, but Scott, you believe all time is happening all at once. And so if you went back to change something, it's something you've always done.
True. But I'm always going to make the same decision that I would make.
But that means he may have always caused the end of the world.
We're going to get into this, but this film utilizes almost a lot of different theories of time travel in the same film, which is really interesting.
So he does try to subtly, completely change, his timeline, save his mom.
He puts the can of tomatoes, right? They didn't have it, so they had to send the dad out, and that's how all this stuff happened. He put the can of tomatoes back in, right?
And it worked, right? He's running through his timeline forward.
Yeah.
And he's seeing all these things happen, and it worked. And,
So it should be pointed out at this point that this is one of those time travel things where he doesn't take on the memory of the changed timeline. Well, we can get into maybe why that happened later, but he goes back to a present that's different, and he doesn't know. He sees some of it in that time sphere, but he doesn't know everything.
Right. He doesn't automatically have all the memories of his mom being alive.
Yeah.
Because his forward, this Barry Allen, that Barry Alpha will call him, his timeline is always moving forward, even if he's going back in time. That
right.
Barry Allen is one direction.
He starts seeing, his 18th birthday, he sees memories. But then it should be noted that a creature person knocks him in the face and pushes him out of the time sphere.
Into reality. And I just wondered why he didn't just get up and do it again and get back in the time sphere and go back to the present. He didn't. He walked around and came to his house and saw his mom and got emotional.
Well, I can see why, if a monster just came out of fucking nowhere and kicked you out of your time machine, you might not be super excited to hop right back in.
That's true too. That is true too.
You'd be like, holy shit, something has happened. I should investigate a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a hero. That's what he does. He fights big superpowered monsters.
And then proceeds, one of my favorite things is interacting with your younger or older self.
Yeah, he's younger by
10 years?
No. Barry Allen's pretty young. Is he 28?
Well, I think you're supposed to think that some years have happened since he, like when he said school, that was I think he's older. I think 10 years might be right on the money.
Okay.
So he was a 28-year-old virgin?
Oh, poor guy. He's spending all of his time where he doesn't date. He's been working on freeing his father. He's also a little socially awkward.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he goes, he sees his parents now, so he's dealing with this new reality and he's talking to them and they're commenting like he looks different, his hair is different.
So hold on a second. So I'm looking at Wikipedia real quick. They're referring to him as 2013 Barry.
Right, so 10 years after.
So that is 10 years ago. Okay. I guess it never occurred to me that I just kept thinking that he got kicked out into an alternate time. He did get kicked out into an alternate timeline. So I just always assumed.
So we can get into our theories of that now.
I always assumed it was just an alternate timeline, not an alternate past.
Right.
But it is. It's an alternate past.
An alternate timeline, an alternate past. We think. I mean, that's what seems to make the most sense in retrospect, is the dude pushed him specifically, as he said, into that timeline to make him. So that may not be the actual timeline that Barry, I mean, depending on your theory of what happened here, there might be a timeline that he could go back to that he now changed. That might not be a thing anymore. There's a lot thrown out at you. But
so the best thing that we learn when he first starts to interact with his younger alternate self is that Eric Stoltz is still Marty McFly. Michael J. Fox is Ren McCormick from Footloose. And Kevin Bacon is Maverick in Top Gun.
I mean, the Eric Stoltz thing is a pretty special Easter egg for those of us that know that most of the film was shot with him.
Yeah. I mean, can we just take a moment and point out that yet again, Back to the Future is the foundation of all time travel movies.
Yeah.
It was referred to it again. And it wasn't the first movie. There were other time travel movies before it.
Yeah, how is it not the H.G. Wells novel or something that is always referenced?
In the time since I have known the two of you, and we used to talk about time travel films in the car, the world of time travel films, when we used to do that, there were not a lot, and we used to talk about it. It's so common now. Now, the way to own it in new films is to reference, like in horror films, they talk about what you don't do in horror films and they get killed. Now they have to talk about time travel films in time travel film. So it's a whole new postmodern kind of approach. But yeah, Back to the Future is just getting dropped all over the place.
Yeah. They could have said, instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, they could have said some other actor. It is a fun little Easter egg that we know that actor was the original Marty McFly and got replaced.
The Hulk Hogan in the Terminator films.
Yeah.
So he's realizing that he messed up the timeline. He's realizing also he's concerned it's catastrophic because there's another version of himself. This version grew up with a mother and had everything handed to him. So it's a little more of a stoner, lackadaisical, not like the trauma that forces someone to be obsessive and serious. And so, you're seeing that a little bit, but he's concerned about the catastrophic thing of having two copies, right?
Yeah.
Did you say two copies? Oh,
well, one copy, but two of the same person.
Right.
So do we know if he even has his powers as soon as he gets kicked out?
He has his powers. He loses his power. So he's in this new world. He wanted to meet his parents. Then he's trying to understand what's going on with the copy.
But
then
do we see him use his powers before?
Yeah, remember he takes all the cushions and builds a fort around him.
Oh, I was in the bathroom.
Oh, right. I told him to go to the bathroom. He does have his powers. He then realizes, and this is where it gets interesting, and he realizes the trouble with time travel. He realizes that in 30 minutes, this is the day that he got his powers.
That's right.
So other version of himself, he thinks needs to go to this precinct. This guy is nowhere near being a forensic because his parents didn't die. He was not motivated to become a forensic scientist. And who knows what he's studying. But Barry Allen is now Alpha is saying if he doesn't get him there, if this guy doesn't get powers, is that also him, the younger him? And does that mean he, in essence, won't ever have powers? And then he can never get out of this timeline. And now he's starting to realize the trouble with time travel. Ari, which is why before we time travel, we need to reconsider all the possibilities, shouldn't we?
Right. So the original Barry Allen, he's not sure, but he thinks that if this new Barry doesn't get struck by lightning, he won't ever get his powers.
Right, because it's younger him.
And then he'll be stuck there. That's what he's worried about. So
would he ever even come there in the first place?
Yeah.
Well, does he already know that Zod is coming back at this point?
No.
He doesn't yet. Okay. Because also, but he does know that there's no Superman, there's no Aquaman.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There's no Wonder Woman. So I think he may, I can't remember, but I feel like he's already concerned with Zod coming back. And
But there is a Batman. He was just looking for help. I think when he got there, he was looking them all up. And
No, I mean, he started looking them all up when Zod showed up. But I think that was after the lightning strike.
he was looking them up in the apartment with the other. Oh, was that after? It was in the apartment with the guy's roommates.
Yeah.
oh,
Then
yeah.
he found out about Eric Stoltz and all that stuff.
A dairy girl is in this movie. That is so great. I'm so happy for her. I can't remember. I wish I could remember her actual name, but
Anyway, he takes the guy to the site of his accident. The guy starts arguing that he doesn't want to get struck by lightning. Things go a little wrong. And then the lightning bolt hits the chemicals, hits Barry Alpha, and then goes into the other Barry.
It like goes through him.
Yeah, which this gets questionable.
Yeah. Well, they needed to create conflict, right? They needed Barry Alpha to lose his powers to create more of a story. I guess what they were going for was his powers transferred into the new Barry.
Right. Because you would think if he took the brunt of the blow, then the new Barry wouldn't get it. Or whatever new Barry got was not the full exact thing of lightning and chemicals that the first one had if he's in the way. It's questionable. It's suspect.
Oh, yeah. It's super. It's kind of, yeah, it's a little weak, but
Yeah. If you're going to believe this is an accident that was specifically about those chemicals, that lightning, this kind of destroys all that. So you have to think it's something more. Whatever.
that's why I think Ari might be right. It's more of a transfer of powers,
yeah.
Yeah.
which then makes Barry Alpha again special because when Bruce Wayne is able to recreate the original accident, Barry Alpha gets it again. So they go they find out from talking that Bruce Wayne does exist, but no one has heard from him in a long time. He's been a recluse. And so they go sneak into into Wayne Manor, and who do we find?
I mean, wasn't it not that exciting because the trailers have so pushed Michael Keaton that there was no surprise element, right?
I didn't know.
You didn't know
No, I didn't know.
you didn't know Michael Keaton was in the film?
No, I had no idea. So when I saw that, I was like, oh,
I've seen trailers with you for this movie.
okay. Well, I didn't put two and two together that was who it was.
I had forgotten. I saw a trailer.
All right, great for you guys.
I saw a trailer 6 months ago and was like, "Oh, cool, Michael Keaton," and then I totally forgot.
When they were in Wayne Manor and that fighting started happening, did you know who that was at first? Or are you like, what the hell?
No, I didn't know who it was until
Wow, okay, that was fun for you.
the reveal. Yeah.
I didn't even know it was when we first saw him. Like he's so disheveled and hair in his face. I was like, man, Ben Affleck looked like shit. And then
Yeah, I wish if that had been kept secret, that would have been such an exciting moment. They needed. There's a bunch of reasons why they felt like they had to sell that. They didn't want it to be focused on Ezra Miller after all the stuff.
so yeah, so it's really cool. They've got the classic Batman costume and everything. Like it's just really great. And so yeah, with Michael Keaton, they recreate the accident. Well, when does
What's wrong?
well, because Kara's there.
What?
Well, let's get through Batman first, right? So yes,
Well, no, because Kara takes Barry up to get.
That's later.
That's later on.
That's later.
first he just met Batman.
So how do they rescue Kara
They go
without
with
Barry
Batman.
Alpha? Barry Alpha without powers?
yes.
Yeah.
Whoa, I do not remember that.
Desmond saw this film 3 days ago.
Yeah. That's why I wanted
They
to see it.
take Barry without powers?
And then the other Barry gets shot in the leg. So like they're really not playing with a full deck. You got
Yeah.
you got an aging superhero, you got someone shot in the leg and someone with no powers.
Wow. So yeah, so they think they're going to rescue Kal-El.
Well, can we get into the talk with Batman about time travel?
Yeah. Let's slow down, Desmond. Slow down.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, sorry.
So I love when they meet Bruce Wayne for a second, and then Bruce Wayne just takes it all like, okay, so you're from another universe, it's an alternate version, you time traveled.
So this was interesting. The whole spaghetti thing. Like we've seen the cooked spaghetti, as a multiverse done before somewhere.
Have we?
But yeah, I'm sure. Or
No, but the term with spaghetti is like
maybe not exactly with spaghetti, but like a ball of string. We've seen, similar things. But we have never seen two pieces of uncooked spaghetti crossed at a section, right? 'Cause
At a fulcrum.
at a fulcrum, which is the point in which someone went back in time, and then describing it as creating a whole new past, which is the explanation to why Batman is not Ben Affleck.
Right.
right? That was interesting.
That was a great moment. He actually refers to kind of like Avengers, right? He says, I'm sure you've seen some film where they say you make a change and you splinter off an alternate timeline. And he's like, that's not how it goes, right? He crosses the spaghettis like an X. He says, once you change it, you're the fulcrum. And then like it breaks on both sides. You're changing the past and the future.
Yeah, you've changed the past and the future,
Yeah.
which is just essentially saying you've jumped to a different dimension.
Well, I don't know. I thought I read that article that Desmond said. There was one part where they said, imagine like all time is like a bowl of milk with like pepper in it or something like that. And if you put like a straw or a spoon in it, there's a ripple that moves everything in every direction.
Mm.
I think they were trying to say like in his timeline, and Desmond, I only watched that once and skimmed through it, but so like this idea of like him making a ripple throughout all of his own timeline. I think I'm connecting that for me for that fulcrum thing of like, you're changing your future and your past. You have to stop thinking of time as linear with a beginning and end. And you are just kind of like sending a ripple in all the ways. Really interesting idea.
So I want to ask you guys a question here. Hopefully I can. So Barry Alpha is the fulcrum and he jumps to beta timeline. Does that mean there is no Barry in timeline Alpha right now?
Correct.
I mean, you're assuming a bunch of same timelines are existing at the same time. I mean, I guess this film is supporting that. It's supporting multiverse.
Yeah, if somebody travels back in time or enters a time sphere, the fourth dimension, they do not exist on that timeline anymore. There's not another version of you continuing on.
Right.
But if he goes back to it, would they ever notice if he was only gone for a second? What does time mean in one timeline when you're doing stuff in another timeline?
Oh, right. If he eventually returns to that timeline.
Yeah. Like, how do you know they're running along at the same time? But then it can go, it gets dicey.
Yeah. If he stays in beta timeline and eventually dies there, then yes, there's a, but maybe not though, because with the spaghetti, because what he talks about is that a lot of timelines just fizzle out.
So, but the fulcrum idea is really interesting, right? This is different. It's very easy. And again, this whole show is trying to think outside of our brains of what we're taught for like linear timeline. And it starts in time is a construct we can't imagine. And so we have to imagine not linear. So I like this idea of like a ripple that goes in both directions.
Like you're so powerful. Like once you're a time traveler, like you're a fucking god. You're a god at that point.
If time is a circle, I mean, again, we can't even think of it that way, but if time is all around and everything and molecules are vibrations and you make a change in it that it wouldn't ripple into everything, which affects, if it is, say, circular, that it would affect all of it.
It's interesting how they represented time in this movie as a string, like literally a piece of spaghetti, or a bunch of pieces of spaghetti that intertwine and connect. And they also represented it as spheres, right? So the time sphere within that like giant world of your time. So it's kind of contradictory because, they want you to not think of time as just a straight line, but yet the way that they explained it.
Yeah. So he said the bowl of spaghetti, he's like, some of the spaghetti goes parallel, some go all over the place.
He said there's always events that will always cross or be similar.
Yeah. What they call those? Fulcrum event? No. Certain like key events will always happen.
Yeah.
So then that begs the question of like, you can't change the future, right? Like it's always going to happen, right? Because they represented that as well.
Well, this film brings up a lot of ideas. It contradicts itself.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in a bit. But
okay.
Also, I have a question for what you guys both think. So Barry's in his own little sphere. He's seeing his own timeline. Is this like your own personal universe? This is not the grand timeline of the world. It's like your timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, because then he could like look through the wall of it and see all these other spheres of all these other timelines with the different Supermans.
I think of Palm Springs, and I thought that was really interesting about Palm Springs. Like I said, that he was in the loop, but then he makes it out. So there is his own experience, and then there's what time is beyond him. He makes it out, and the other guy's still in the loop. So they were like his own personal time.
Yeah, it was confusing because it was this sphere that you're inside this ball,
and you're seeing everything around you.
Yeah, but yet there's all these other dimensions, timelines of alternate yous. Do all those other alternate yous have their own sphere?
Right. That's a good point. And then at the end, you see things that have nothing to do with him and like worlds colliding.
And collapsing, he said.
And collapsing, yeah, it's questionable. That's where, from my knowledge of what they were showing with comic books, that was like Crisis on Infinite Earths. That was the first multiverse that I ever heard of. was made by DC in 1985 because that's how they had to explain that there were heroes from the 40s and the heroes from the 80s and they all existed. So they made an Earth where it's the 40s presently going on. And that's where like old school Flash is and Green Lantern. And then there's like Earth 2. And then there's a future Earth. And in that, they had to simplify the universe. So everything collided and they had to kill off a bunch of people, make one universe. That was the first I ever heard of multiverse theory. And so it was kind of like that they were doing. They were showing old school Superman, old school Adam West, and all these like worlds colliding. That was showing that they were destroying like the multiverse.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was Evil Barry both Barrys combined?
No, it was just the new Barry. And they used the scar to show that. His theory that that was the younger him, I think it says their own, I think was not. This is a alternate, this is a different timeline. The guy pushed him into it specifically to make him.
But then that's a big contradiction as well, because then that's a different dimension, but each sphere is your own dimension, but each spaghetti string is a different, you know what I mean? So it was.
Well, and I think that's what he like. I think in theory, all of these universes stay in their place and they don't collide. But by Evil Barry bouncing around to them, he gave them all a common denominator. That's why they started to crash into each other. Like usually they stay separated and do their own thing, but because someone starts bouncing around, they start to physically come together also.
But if you are saying that it's all one timeline or not one timeline, so you're saying that the evil Barry and the young Barry are from the same timeline, but Alpha Barry is not because he was not affected by.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So it has to support that. It has to be that way, right?
Yeah, but then wouldn't they have their own sphere? How can you jump into someone else's sphere?
Also, okay, if we're getting, are we getting into this now?
Sure.
Well, if you can go fast enough to control time in your own sphere, it's not a big jump to think if you go faster, you can get to another sphere.
You saw in the arena, you see all the multiple options of every decision you make and what the outcomes are. You see that in that arena. You know, they even saw like the way that Supergirl kept dying. He saw the different outcomes in that arena. Here's the issue. It's fine that when the evil guy says, look, I made you when you made me, like I pushed you out specifically so you'd interact, you would get him the powers, and that would eventually become me. So, and you know, the scar to prove it, that suggests that has always happened, is happening, that has always happened repeatedly.
So that's a loop.
And it doesn't make sense how then all of a sudden younger him fights him, dies, and then destroys the older him, because it's always happened this way. It doesn't make sense, right?
Why does that not make sense?
Why does that not make sense?
That guy pushed Barry out at the very beginning before Barry got into this adventure, which means this has already happened.
Right.
Right. That guy had pushed, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It's not linear. But that means it's always happened. It's always happened that way. And then out of a sudden, everything's always happened this way. And out of nowhere, then the younger Barry actually takes the bullet for him. And then now the older guy dies. Now he doesn't no longer exist. But this has to have been happening always. Again, he pushed Barry into it to create him. But Barry had to create him for that to happen. But he's already doing it, which means this is just on loop. This has to have always been this way.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Because now he got destroyed. And if that happened, then how was the loop happening? If that was an option to kind of change that, it's saying it was happening, always happening, but now all of a sudden there's choice and it can be linear and something different can happen.
Could it be a one-time loop?
Nope, but he was already there. You know what I mean? It's like Terminator. That guy pushed Barry into that timeline to meet the other Barry, to make him the guy that would become him. He'd already pushed him. That already happened.
So I take it as this.
Oh, okay.
Barry Allen went back in time and changed something. When you do that, that creates either, a fork in the timeline or an X, however you want to look at it. They described it as an X in this movie. And now there are two of him. And now Alpha is on that timeline completely separate. In that different sphere, the way that they just showed the spheres, I think it was just more for like visual effect. It looked really cool, but I more want to think of it as lines and spaghettis,
like Interstellar. Remember how he saw like everything in Interstellar?
I kind of thought of it, yeah, like it's a bowl collapsing in on itself instead of a never-ending bookcase. It's not that much of a stretch.
I just took it as like a piece of spaghetti that was made into the shape of a sphere. But anyway, so he's in this other timeline, and all this happened in this timeline. And he created the young guy, which then turned into the old guy, which then the young guy died, and it just kind of wrapped itself up in this timeline. And then he went back to the point of the intersection and then jumped back to his timeline. Well, technically he made a new timeline because he changed something, but you know what I mean.
The old guy forced him into the timeline before he even met his younger self. That's all.
So now, is it possible that
No, Scott. So hang on. I gotta reply to this. So you're saying that he forced him into the timeline. He was already in that timeline running to see the new timeline after he made the change of saving his mom. So he didn't force him into that timeline. He was already in that timeline when he changed the past.
Right. But the older version of that bad guy Flash, let's say, already existed. He hadn't been made yet. I mean, time's not linear, but I'm saying that's why it's loopy.
Right. Within that new timeline is this weird causal loop.
Right.
Is
It's a loop. It's a loophole.
is it possible
It's a paradox.
The paradox.
that Barry Beta goes forward in time and gets really angry and evil because now he has to live without a mom also?
I think they're suggesting it was all from this. Well, what was happening?
But what happens to Barry Beta? Does he melt into...
As soon as Barry Beta gets killed by the older version of Barry Beta, and then they both die. Well, Barry, the younger one, dies. The other one disappears because now he never made it to that age.
That's right. He sacrifices himself.
The old Back to the Future approach, the old grandfather.
That's right. See, I forgot how young Barry died, so that does ruin my...
Anyway, that's my issue.
So real quick, we kind of jumped over it, but Kara and Batman keep dying, and both Barrys keep going back back in time to save, and they realize that no matter how many times they go back, these Kara and Bruce Wayne dying are a fulcrum, or what I forget what we can't remember what they call them. And then Barry Alpha accepts the fact that we can't do it, and Barry Beta is like, fuck you, I don't care how many times this takes, I'm going to do it. And so he spends, I don't know, a millennium going back in time 5 minutes trying to save Kara and Bruce Wayne, and then he turns into just a time.
Yeah. Our Barry is starting to accept that you can't change it. They're going to die in every timeline. These are constants.
Yeah.
And there was an interesting point when he got Batman to help him that he mentions that he noticed that in these timelines there were some constants, that Batman had an Alfred and his Batman had an Alfred.
Yeah.
There's just some things in all timelines that are the same. And that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it adopts both different theories, where like you can't change something, it's always going to happen, but also it adopts if you change something, it's going to drastically change the future. So
right. And that's what he said. He says to Batman, like, but the fact that there are these constants, there's nothing scientifically to support that except fate.
Yeah, because they took both theories and put it in the movie. So it kind of contradicts itself, but makes the movie interesting. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you can change something.
Yeah.
And change your entire future, and sometimes you can't. This person's always going to die, always going to die,
Right.
always going to die.
So the movie contradicts. There's a little bit of like,
it does,
where it seems like you are talking about alternate timelines, and then they're talking about how you just destroy all those and you make a ripple, and it's
it does contradicts itself. Luckily with time travel, you can do that because it's not real.
Well, with Batman's theory, you could argue this idea of like, once you travel, that it cuts off both sides of the spaghetti, that the ripple effect of just it destroys everything on both sides. You can rationalize that anything could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're at the end. Barry realizes that he can't change the stuff. Young Barry's in denial. The old one realizes he has to kill Barry Alpha, but young Barry Beta steps in the way, takes the blade, I guess, as it is. When he dies, the older version dies. And then Barry goes back to right what was wrong. He takes the tomato can that he put in his mom's cart out. But here's the problem. Apparently, they don't let you know until the final scene that he ended up putting the tomato cans all on the top shelf so that his dad would look up when he got it there and would be in the camera and would have an alibi for the murder.
Right.
Question for this one. He goes to the future, and at that court case, they're saying, we just realized this with this footage, that now we have this footage and you can see his face. But wouldn't that have always been there?
No, because remember, it's fuzzy, and it takes Bruce Wayne's technology to defuzz it.
Got it. Okay.
And which we see at the beginning of the movie. Yay, it's defuzzed, but dad never looks up.
So mom still dies, but dad is now free of charges.
Right.
And I'm sorry, the whole point of this film, and this is based on the Flashpoint paradox. This is based on a graphic novel, is to accept that you cannot change these things. And he learned that lesson, and then he goes back and he fucking changes it.
Well, I mean, we have to get some positive thing from it, you know, like his mom is still dead, but at least his dad's free.
He doesn't change anything that we've seen yet.
Until he comes back, right?
He doesn't, nothing. He has not changed the past. I mean, yeah, I guess he did change the past.
He did.
He absolutely changed the past.
But he doesn't do anything that would.
He learned that the smallest difference can cause such giant catastrophic issues. And then he still fucking changes something. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. That's a movie trying to give you a happy ending.
But everything would have happened the same because his dad is still blurred out until that court date, which.
I know, but he still changed the cans thing. He changed the outcome, which has many effects on the.
It's interesting how sometimes in butterfly effect / ripple effect, you have all the new memories and sometimes you don't. And in this version, he does not have the new memories, right? Because he would have known who Batman was.
Yeah.
He's the fourth dimension, like you said, right? Who steps outside and is the fulcrum of all of this. And yeah.
Well, and that's where hopefully going forward, this storyline will continue. And I mean, because is George Clooney going to be in the next Justice League movie? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, are they setting up a sequel?
No, the theory, I was told this movie was setting up the new DC universe. And all it's doing in that is showing you that he kind of destroyed it. But there's like theories that he's in an alternate universe still because of like the changes and stuff. And so he's not in his universe anymore. And
well, see, now if DC had a plan, which they never fucking do, they could have the next Batman ready to go. Like, if they just have some rando be Batman in the next DC movie, then fuck them.
They are. Well, they're going to recreate it. They're rebuilding everything. They're going to have a new Superman. They're not going to have the same Wonder Woman. They use this to kind of destroy everything, but not very directly. I think they're just showing that now he's messed it up and anything can happen. Anyone can still not exist. And that's all. That's all we're getting from this.
So could he just, maybe in the next movie, it just starts with him time traveling and they're like, well, now we're in this timeline, whatever.
I'm not even sure they're going to keep Flash in the future because the Ezra Miller issues. So I think they did a really poor job. I thought they were going to use this to launch the new universe. I think they just did the Aquaman scene at the end to show that he's still there because he has a movie coming out.
That was such a weird, useless scene.
It is a useless scene. It is a dumb, useless scene. Just to show that he's drunk. That's all we have to see is that Aquaman is there and he's drunk. Again, they're just trying to set up that all the other heroes are gone, but Aquaman's around to be in his film, which comes out later this year.
Yeah. So I have a question. In your research that you guys do so well for all of our movies, did you come across anything that talked about the significance of the color of the lightning, whether it was yellow or blue? Because it wasn't consistent.
I noted that it was yellow in the beginning. He went in the other world and it looked like it was all blue. Then later on, he got some yellow. And then when him and other Barry were like teamed up, Beta had blue and original Alpha had yellow.
Yeah, I think they did it. I think they were confused by it. And then at the end, they just did it so you could track Beta and Alpha.
Yeah, it like didn't, I couldn't take notes in the movie theater, but it didn't it wasn't consistent. It wasn't like anytime he was in the past, it was blue. I just remember being very, very confused by it. I'd be like, wait, now it's yellow. Wait, now it's blue. What does it mean?
I feel like we're leaving a lot on the table, but I mean, not a lot, but like this was meaty. Like they did a lot of shit in this movie, but I think we did a pretty good job. It just makes me really want to see it again.
I mean, yeah, it's the most time travel stuff we've had. They brought a lot of ideas, kind of some new revolutionary ideas. CGI was rough. It's a bit convoluted. They went against the entire theme of it. As a comic purist, it strays a bit from the storyline that they're doing. But in the comic book where this happens, there's no other version of himself, just him. He does lose his powers. He tries to fix it. The world he comes to is not the same. He loses powers and he tries to find Batman, and Batman is actually Thomas Wayne. It's Bruce Wayne's father in this universe.
Oh.
but he still helps him out. He's like a gritty, like 5 o'clock shadow Batman. Or I don't know if like his son got killed, and that's why I don't remember actually. But he helps him get his powers back, and then he realizes and he corrects it and just goes back to reality. That's enough of a happy ending that like he fixes time. You guys just watched Gal Gadot, Henry Cavill, and Ben Affleck get erased by an eraser. Bye. So now they can just do whatever they want.
And you know what? And that's even fine. Like if they want to just jump all the way into the multiverse and just be like, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want for every movie. Like, fine. But like, make no plan be the plan. Yeah. Instead of like so loosely tied together. So we kind of talked about, you know, if we would or wouldn't. Well, Ari, I guess I'll just ask you directly. Would you go back to save a loved one knowing that you might destroy an entire race of people?
Well, you don't know what could happen, right?
I mean, Batman did tell him.
Yeah, they warn you, okay, butterfly effect, you could change things significantly. I would, because apparently it's very easy to just rewind to that one moment and not have done it at all. Like, you have the ability to go back in time. If things get truly fucked up, you just go back to 1 second before you left.
Well, then you turn into evil. Then you turn into evil Beta Barry and you're a fucking time monster.
And then you don't do it anymore. I appreciated how this movie used a lot of time travel, a lot of laws. Even though there were some that contradicted each other, I still appreciated that. I thought it was very entertaining. And I liked how they brought back the old Batmans. You know, it was like the Spider-Man movie where they brought back all the Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
But that is multiverse. That was specifically multiverse. And this was like multiverse and time travel. And I liked how they kind of created an original law, right? With the two spaghetti strands crossing.
And it would get, I have a feeling it would get messy like that. Like,
right.
You know, I don't know if it's as simple as the Marvel universe where you just go back to the fulcrum and it just never act like it never happened.
Picture maybe if like time travel, you know, I'm saying for our best purposes, we're thinking about like it's a record on a record player. If you do a scratch on a record player, it's not just one point. You know what I mean? It'll mess up all the songs.
Well, and I liked, I'm going to put the video in the notes of this. I found a video that explained some time travel in The Flash by explaining the time travel in a lot of movies. And it's a really interesting YouTube video. And I like how he shows you the long spaghetti strand, but then he also says, but if you look at time a certain way, it just looks like a bunch of dots.
Oh, yeah. He was referring to the spaghetti strand, but if you're looking at it from the end of the strand, it's a dot.
Yeah.
So was that what he's saying with like, and all those dots in like a big bowl of liquid?
Yeah. And then that's when he's like, if you're like this moment in time is so powerful that your moment in time just pushes all other moments of time out of the way.
It's again, challenging our brains to think nonlinear. So I like to feel the stretch. I like to feel my brain stretch. It's like trying to think about infinity.
It's so great.
If you could travel faster than the speed of light, it means you're traveling faster than photons. Everything would stop and go black because no photons would be hitting your eyes. No light particles would be hitting your eyes. And so everything would just be pitch black and everything would stop. So yeah, if you can go faster than the speed of light.
Science bomb from Ari.
Actually, this brings up a good point. I believe it was Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Their method of time travel was they have to loop around the sun and like they like piggyback off the speed like slingshot. And it was to beat the speed of light to time travel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That was also a loose theory.
Yeah, I mean, for this Flash movie, it's just that if you can go faster than the speed of light, you're in the fourth dimension. And once you're in the fourth dimension, you can go forward, you can go back in time. It's just like completely different, which is a fun, cool theory.
Did Interstellar say anything about speed light? It was all about gravity. There was nothing about...
Well, it's all about how gravity, like how a black hole just eats light and gravity.
Have we had any episode where I don't bring up Interstellar?
No.
Has that happened? It hasn't happened, right?
Never. You'll.
So that's a constant.
Interstellar is your constant.
That's our constant. Scott bringing up Interstellar.
Back to the Future usually gets brought up, but not every time.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Time Pop. We hope you have enjoyed this journey through time. Please like, subscribe, and tell a friend about Time Top. Time Top. I love Time Top about Time Pop, the time travel movie podcast. Keep sending us great movie recommendations to timepoppod@gmail.com. That is timepoppod@gmail.com. We got a lot of recommendations for this movie, but no one's going to get credit for that because, of course, we're doing the fucking Flash. So thank you for pushing us towards it, but you're going to have to try a little bit harder to get on our recommend list. So send those to timepoppod@gmail.com. You can also send any questions or comments from this or any past episode to the same address. Please send us your Flash theories to timepoppod@gmail.com. Looking for another great podcast to listen to while you wait for the next episode of Time Pop? Head on over to whatsoundsawesome.com and check out our great podcast lineup. We have comedy spirituality, the Wheel of Time, fitness nutrition, and awesome women in the form of All the Answers, Truth Not Trends, Thank the Light, Be Brave, and That Fitness Couple. You can find them at whatsoundsawesome.com or wherever you find fine free podcasts. Until next time, I'm Desmond McNeese.
I'm Ariel.
And I'm Scott.
Bye. Oh, geez. No, thank you.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.